Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily Reads, and today I have for you the Midyear Freakout tag book version. And I was tagged by Tiffany over at the Beach Bum Bookworm. So if you're not familiar with her, she loves cozy mysteries and romances, and I know her mostly for loving cozy mysteries. So if you love cozy mysteries, you need to go check her out. She hosts sprints most Sunday evenings at 4 o'clock Central Standard Time. And um, yeah, so I've learned some cozies from her, and she tagged me in this book tag. So I don't know if I'm using the same exact questions that she used. I took some questions from a different mid-year book tag, and kind of tweaked them as my own. So here we go. I have a stack of books next to me. They're kind of sliding all over. So you're going to see me like reach down and get off camera for a minute as I go through the tag and put things on the floor beside me. I can't sit on the floor. My knees don't allow that. So here I am on my sofa. At any rate, here we go. Number one, the best book that you have read so far. And I'm going to say The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. And I loved this book. I'm stunned that I read it because it's 1,243 pages long. And it's a classic. And so it can be intimidating. And I'm going to say one, you need to read this. It's a classic revenge story. So if you like revenge, if you like the themes of like fate versus like what is our fate, what is our destiny and free will, what are the consequences of the choices that we make, this book will be for you. Now, I will say this, there were maybe a couple of sequences that I was like, I really could have kind of done without. It does set up some future, it does set the stage for some future scenes. So on one hand, they are important, but on the other hand, I felt like maybe about 200 pages could have been cut. Now, again, this is a 1,243 page book, and I only felt that maybe 200 pages out of this book could be cut. That's saying a lot. For classic and for it being translated, I thought this was very readable. And so that also is saying a lot. I will say this, if you want to tackle this, and I feel like you should tackle this, don't be intimidated. Take it, chunk it up. So what I did, and I had a journal, and I literally said, okay, I want to read this in 2 months. How many pages do I have to read a day? So I figured that out, and then I literally wrote out all of the pages I had to read. So like, I think I estimated that I needed to read 49 pages a day. So basically I was like 49, 98, and then I just added 49 pages to all those numbers. So then I was able to keep track and cross off as I read. So that way I did not feel intimidated. And then you can celebrate by eating a Count of Monte Cristo sandwich, which is absolutely delicious. But yeah, I love this book, and I need to read more classics because of it. So then, best sequel. And I read a few sequels. I actually didn't read as many as I thought I did. But the best sequel for me was A Court of Mist and Fury, which was just amazing. It being a sequel, it's kind of hard to talk about it, but we learned more about Feyre and the outcome, the results of the actions that happened in A Court of Thorns and Roses. We get now, here are the implications for some of those things that happened in A Court of Thorns and Roses, and we don't know what the long-term implications are. So we now get the long-term implications for Feyre and her relationship with Tamlin and Rysand, who is Rysand in relationship to Feyre. Yeah, this is good, and just sent me on a journey through ACOTAR. New release that you have not read yet. There's a few. One, I need to read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I have loved everything that she has written so far. Some people are like, oh man, she writes the same thing over and over. You know what? I grew up reading romance novels in the 90s and the early 2000s, and those Regency romance novels are basically the same tropes over and over and over again. And it's not just by one author, it's by all of the authors doing all the same things over and over again. And I can say that loving all of those, having loved all those romance novels, okay? But I do need to read this one. It's a continuation of her Scientists in Love. I think these are food scientists, which I think will be interesting. I used to live near the Rockford area, and not too far across the border in Wisconsin is Cary Food Industries, which is a food scientist lab that creates different spices and different seasonings for different food companies and TV dinners. And I knew people who worked in that industry. So I think this will be an interesting read. I also need to read, oh goodness gracious, The Women by Kristen Hanna. I do have it. It's on my shelf. I forgot to take it off. And The Women just follows, from what I understand, nurses in the Vietnam War. And I also need to read Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse, which this is her third and final book in her series with Black Sun and Fevered Star. I don't remember the name of the series. Between Earth and Sky is the series. It's right there on the cover, Emily. Read the cover. I did start reading this in June, and I realized it was just going to be a slower read for me, and so I didn't want to read it in June. Not that it's going to be bad, but I was doing the Amazing Race in June, and I needed to be able to read books that I could fly through for the Amazing Readathon. So I paused it, and I need to pick it back up. Most anticipated release. I've got 3. So one actually will be delivered to me today, and I'm so excited to get it. And that is The Undermining of Twyla and Frank. That is the companion novel for The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. So it's a fantasy romance, and it's got kind of like zombie creatures that they're fighting, and they have to be marshals for. And The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, what worked so well for that book was it was kind of like an oddball fantasy take on You've Got Mail. So I'm not sure then how, and that's part of what I loved about it. So as a result, I'm not sure how then The Undermining of Twyla and Frank will land for me. I'm kind of nervous, but I'm also really excited about it. I'm looking forward to Air by Sabah Tahir. And this is set several years after the events of An Ember in the Ashes and that series. And I loved Ember in the Ashes. I actually need to reread that series. I've read the first couple of books a few times, but the last book in that I've only read once. So, and that book was heartbreaking. So I need to reread that series, but I'm so looking forward to Air when that comes out. And then, of course, as a Brandon Sanderson fan, how can you not, I cannot not be excited over Wind and Truth, when December comes out. So I'm glad it's coming out in December. I probably won't be able to read it right when it comes out, but I'll have winter break that I can start picking it up. As long as I can finish Oathbringer and Rhythm of War before then. And Sunlit Man. Gotta read Sunlit Man. Okay. Number 5, biggest disappointment. This is kind of going to be a hot take, but Funny Story by Emily Henry was my biggest disappointment. I was very looking forward to it. I was thoroughly expecting that it would work for me. I really loved Beach Read. I really loved Book Lovers. So I loved her books about people who worked with books. And in Funny Story, the main female character is a librarian. So I thought for sure this is going to work for me. So I'm reading it, and I'm sitting here thinking these characters are in their early 20s. They're fresh out of college because of just how they are acting, the choices that they're making, how they are talking. They just come off as very immature. So imagine my surprise when they're 33 and 35. And I'm going, you're acting far too young. Like the choices that you are making, like you should be over this at 33 and 35. Like all of them, I was just like, you're acting too young for your age. So I just could not then connect with them. And I just didn't feel like it had, for me, it did not have the good banter that Beach Read and Book Lovers had. It just fell flat for me. Biggest surprise, I've got two. And I'm watching my stack of books and I'm terrified that they're going to go falling over. One, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed Bride by Allie Hazelwood. Now I know there are some big booktubers out there who gave it 1 star and thought it was horrible. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now here's the deal, and I'm wondering if I read it now, would I thoroughly enjoyed it as much as I did? I don't know. I read this in a month where we had some pretty traumatic events happen at school. And so oh, look at that flop. That was amazing. Uh, I just needed some good fun. I just needed fluff to take my mind off of some of the traumatic events that were going on at school. And I love that. And so that's why I loved it. So I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it because I wasn't sure if this was going to land for me. Another surprise was Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. And not that I enjoyed the book and not that I thought this book was so phenomenal. I had a feeling that I would enjoy this book. I've heard such rave reviews already about this book for years, and I've been meaning to read this for years. So the fact that I enjoyed it as much as I did not surprise me. What surprised me was the historical events that happened in this book. Like I knew that people were arrested under the communist regime. I knew that they were sent to Siberia. That was what I was taught in high school, okay? But for some reason, it just did not dawn on me how long they were there in Siberia. The people were there for like a decade, for 12 years, longer. And then when they returned home, they could not talk about what happened to them. They could not talk about what happened to them in the prisons because they were still living in a communist regime. And if they talked about it, they could have been spied upon and ratted out to the government and sent back to those prisons. And so people weren't able to talk about and receive healing from the trauma that they faced. And it wasn't until the mid-90s when communism fell that people were actually able to start beginning to talk about the things that happened to them. And that I just didn't know. And I was just stunned by that. So I think it is a phenomenal book. Yes, it's set during World War II. It gives, and I know World War II books have kind of saturated our market, but I think this gives a different side to the World War II story and gives a picture of what's going on in Russia. And it was good. Favorite new author. So this doesn't have to be an author who has debuted books. It can just be someone that you have not read before. And that'd be Sarah J. Maas. Yes, I like binge read A Court of Thorn and Roses over the span of like 2 months. And I've got plans to read the Throne of Glass series. I've already got the first Crescent City novel. I am all in. I can't wait to read more from her. Newest favorite romance. So now I know some people might interpret this question as what is your newest favorite couple in a romance novel? I am not interpreting it that way. I'm interpreting it as, what is your newest favorite romance novel? Oh, I'm watching my books go sliding. And actually, I could say two. But I'm picking just one, and that's gonna be Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And the reason why is I really liked um, gaining pers- I liked how she brought in characters from. Sorry, I'm looking at my bookshelf to get the names. Part of Your World and Yours Truly. I had just a brain fart moment on the other two novels. So I liked how she brings in characters from those two novels in this book. I'm really hoping that one of those characters really does have a change of heart. If you've read this book, you know who I'm talking about. Um, Horrifying about some events of another character. What I also loved about this book is I really do feel that she does a wonderful job describing and depicting how someone disassociates from trauma and shuts down. And while we might struggle to understand what is Emma's behavior in this book and think like, okay, just talk to him, just communicate, like I really think that she's depicting disassociation from trauma. And that's why she's not capable sometimes of communicating what's going on. It's because she's disassociating so she doesn't get hurt. And I thought this was just a wonderful depiction of the effects of trauma on someone. Um, your favorite newest character? Nesta. Yes, I said it. I love Nesta. Um, Here's why I love Nesta. Um, I've had Nesta moments myself from grief, okay, where I became bitter and alienated some people. I love Nesta because I think she's got a great character arc. I think she cares for people in her way, and she's been hurt, and then she does not know. I really think Nesta is so when we talk about trauma, I think Sarah J. Maas, each of the Acheron sisters is a response to trauma. Feyre is our fight. Like she will fight for her family to get food on the table. She will fight for Tamlin and ACOTAR. She will fight for the people that she cares about in later books of the ACOTAR series. So Feyre's fight. Elaine, I think, is freeze. We know that there's fight, flight, and now there's a third response is freeze. Elaine is freeze. After some events in the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury, she freezes and doesn't know how to act. Nesta is our flight, and so her self-medicating, her sleeping with numerous people, that pushing people away, those are all flight responses to trauma. And I just love her character arc to becoming a better person and to try to heal from that trauma eventually. And so when we talk about book crush, I'm going to also say Cassian. Now, yes, I know the popular answer would be Rhysand. Yes, I love Rhysand as well. And he was my biggest book crush until this book. Rhysand, it's very easy to love Feyre. I mean, Feyre fights for the people she loves. Who wouldn't love that? Here's why I love Cassian, and he's my biggest book crush right now. Nesta is not easy to love. It is easy to walk away from Nesta, but it's not easy to stick around and love Nesta. And he keeps, as he was advised to do, he keeps reaching out his hand to her. And even though she hurts him and does horrible, hurtful things to him, he does not give up on her. And that's why I love him. Book that made you cry. The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I almost just teared up just talking about it. I just think this is such a beautiful romance and a beautiful working through of grief, especially when that death is unexpected. And there's just some beautiful reflections on how to process grief and unexpected grief. And I just was crying. So, 5-star read. A book that made you happy. The Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. So this book follows our robot Roz. She had crash landed on a wild island, and she befriends all the different animals on this island. And in book 2, she's now like among the humans and living among the humans. And and what made me so happy in this book is a spoiler moment, so I can't really go into it. But he's got beautiful pictures in this, and the picture that it just made me so happy. I keep coming back to look at it. It's just so heartwarming. I just want a copy of that picture to be able to hang up somewhere in my library, my office, or at my classroom, because it's just such a heartwarming, just beautiful, huggable picture. Most beautiful book purchased or given to you. This book, actually, I picked up this weekend, so it's a good thing that I held off on doing the Midyear Freakout tag, and that would be Pride and Premeditation. I just think it's so beautiful, that cover. And then finally, the book to read before the end of the year. I need to finish Oathbringer, and then I need to read Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, and then I'll be ready for Wind and Truth. Whew, that is all, folks. I'm going to go. I got to deal with some issues with my neighbors. I just hate neighbors. At any rate, what are some books that you have enjoyed reading so far? What are your thoughts on some of the books that I've read? And as always, please like, subscribe, do all the wonderful social media things, comment down below, let me know your thoughts, and happy reading.